Hot take. Most brand problems aren't design problems.
They're strategy problems dressed up in pretty colors.
If you're feeling stuck or unsure about your brand, you're in the right place.
And now, let's talk branding. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Talk Branding to Me podcast. My name is Jessie. I am here with my co host, Jamie. And today we are talking all about how to find inspiration when creating a brand identity. I think that's something that people can often struggle with. I know we ourselves can struggle with it from time to time when we're in the trenches and doing it all day, every day. Sometimes you hit a wall and, it's hard to figure out new approaches, and styles and techniques for creating an identity, especially when the point of a brand identity is to be custom and unique, not look like everyone else's. When you hit that wall, where do you find inspiration? Either when creating a brand identity from scratch, or maybe when refreshing or rebranding your own. So we have some helpful tips for our listeners today. Jamie, do you want to go ahead and kick us off with tip number one?
Of course. So, our first tip for you might sound really obvious, but it's really important. And that is to step away from the digital space to clear your mind. The reason for this is because there is no shortage of information on the internet or anywhere, wherever you exist in that digital space. There's Pinterest, there's Instagram, there's all the social media channels. There's an endless rabbit hole that you can go down through searching on internet browsers. There is no shortage of information. But as you said, Jesse, in order to figure out what is truly unique for you and special for you, we are suggesting that you get off the internet, that you step away to clear your brain. So go outside in nature, look at clouds and find shapes, smell some flowers and admire how beautiful they are. Take a field trip, go to a museum or art gallery, go to the zoo, see how landscaping has been set up in these places. Look in nature and look outside of the digital space to see how people have creatively incorporated art and just different things into the environment. You could go to a boutique store that has unique items, not the same stuff that you can get in any big box store, but look for the things that are truly unique. Where are those special things that you can look at and appreciate just for what they are? Even in stepping away, maybe consider doing something with your hands, like a craft project, or read a physical book or magazine, doing something that is tactile. And here is why we've given you these suggestions. Because when you are doing things with your hands, when you are in an environment that you have that like immersive experience in, it actually activates a different part of your brain through those particular activities. That is what we want for you, to activate a different part of your brain that you don't normally use in order to unlock new ideas. If we feel pressure to come up with an idea or to just figure something out and then you spend hours going down the rabbit hole, when you stop thinking about it and you turn your mind to something else, I think all of us can probably say that that is when we've actually had true inspiration strike, because we gave our brains a break and we did something different that helped our brain just sort of relax and then allow that inspiration to come in. And I'll give it a practical example. There was one time I was at the beach and I brought a magazine. It's called Life Beautiful magazine. And I love it because of how wonderful the design and layout is from a printing point of view. Anyway, this was my reading of choice when I went to the beach one day. And I remember laying on my towel in the sun and I opened to a spread. I don't remember what it was about, but the way the spread was laid out, immediately my brain was inspired, and that actually triggered my first rebrand for my own business. It sounds super weird to say that out loud. I was outdoors, I was relaxing. I had something simple to read and it was beautifully done, very creative, and I saw something that sparked an idea in my own mind, and all of a sudden I thought something similar would be beautiful for my own brand, and that sent me on a journey Ironically enough, I never ended up doing anything like that initial idea, but it was that spark of inspiration that sent me down a path of evolving things creatively for my own business. So that is my personal example of how, just one example actually, of how I have found inspiration by stepping away from the digital space and being outside, doing something different than being on my computer or being on my phone. Jesse, what about you? What's a tip that you've got for our listeners?
My tip is to document your preferences. So, what I mean by that is creating a mood board or maybe a design brief. For listeners who might not know what those are or they've never done them, a mood board I always tell clients is really just kind of an inspiration board of sorts. Some people call it inspiration board, vision board, but basically it's a way to capture and put into a collage form all of your different visual ideas. I also always tell clients to not take it too literally. You don't have to always use like literal images of exactly what something is going to look like. It's more about pulling inspiration and kind of just vibes in general. So, you might pull textures and patterns and certain imagery or parts of photographs, typographic elements you like, maybe not a specific font, but the way that certain serif, appears as part of a font or the way the certain line flows, something like that. Kind of zooming in on bits and pieces of kind of design in real life. It's usually for me a mix of 9 to 10 images. There is no rule around that, but I sort of follow that template and I try to always bring in just a mix of imagery, but also color palettes as well. You can create a mood board for anything. It's no different than you putting a mood board together for your wedding, for an event, redesigning a room in your home, whatever the case may be. So it's a way to compile this entire vibe that you want to go with, this look, feel, color palette, the kind of emotion that you want your design to evoke. So let's say you are creating or refreshing your brand identity, or just even wanting to start with the logo and design a new logo or redesign your website, etc. This is a good place to start because you can pull bits and pieces of inspiration from different sources. I also say to keep it private in a way because you are pulling these images, often from the internet, from Google, from Pinterest. They might be images that have copyrights on them. So you're not reproducing it as your own work or putting it on your website or anything like that. It's really just used for inspiration, just to help begin your project. I like to preface with that disclaimer too. Also, you can do it the old school way. I know in design school, we would open up magazines. I'm sure you did the same thing, Jamie, and actually pull pages out of those, cut up images, put together typography, really cool photos. We always pulled from a lot of home magazines, home and garden magazines, fashion magazines, all of the old Vogues that our art teachers would collect, things like that were always really great resources for constructing a physical mood board. But the importance of that mood board or that design brief is a way to get all of your ideas either onto paper, digitally, or printed. Of course, we're all on our computers nowadays, but it's a way to compile all of your ideas into one area so you can take a bird's eye view of everything and figure out the direction that you want to take your design. Now, something that is important to consider is whether you like something because it's trendy, it's what's popular right now, or because you genuinely like it and connect with it, regardless of if it's a trend or not. I think that you and I both tend to kind of lean towards staying away from trends just
Mhm.
because that's what they are. They're a temporary trend that's probably going to change 6 months down the line, a year from now,
Yeah,
right? And then people are
agree.
going to be about a different look and feel. And they affect everything. It can be typography, it can be photography, it can be the style of a logo, it can be textures. And we go through trends with like florals, with lettering,
Mhm.
handwritten fonts, script fonts were huge for a long time. Certain types of colors, people go through like the pastel phase, the neon phase, jewel tones. Like
Yeah.
brands
Yeah.
look different all the time, but I feel like it's very obvious sometimes to scroll through social media. And I mean, as designers, we see what other designers are posting. It's beautiful work, right? But a lot of times I'm like, it looks like everything else right now just because it's rooted in that current trend. If you like how something looks, regardless of if it's tied to the trend at the time or not, that's fine. If you genuinely connect with it, it's reflective of you and the direction you want to go, that's fine. But don't base that entire design on a trend that is not necessarily going to be around forever. That being said, you and I both always say and recognize that our world is cyclical. So, what is out of style right now becomes back in style. So also, do you pull from nostalgia sometimes? Do you pull from old trends? Do you pull from something that worked in the past that can be relevant again today? I think no matter what direction you go, just make sure that you are not doing it because someone else is doing it right now,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
If you put it this way, if everyone else is doing it and then you decide to do it too, how does that show off how unique your brand is if you are doing what everyone else is doing? If your logo looks just like everyone else's logos or the style of your designs, your social media graphics, or your website, if it looks just like what everyone else is doing, how does that differentiate your brand in the marketplace? Just as you said, that's my argument against doing the trendy things because, yes, it shows that you know what the trends are. And maybe to your audience, if you're on trend, that means you are relevant and that's what your audience wants. But audiences aren't always that way. And rule number one in branding is differentiation and standing on what is the unique factors about you and or your brand. As long as it's an informed decision and you've thought about it and the pros and cons and something about this trend really aligns with the brand, okay, I can't argue with that. But if it doesn't, if you're just doing it because everyone else seems to really like it and it seems really popular, you're just going to blend in with everyone else too, in my opinion. Tip number three, look beyond the obvious choices. A lot of times, I've noticed, Jesse, when creating a mood board, we will often put things on there that we like. And I know for myself, when I have worked with clients on their mood boards, or maybe they've created one for themselves and they shared it with me and we're reviewing it. And I'm like, explain this to me. Why did you pick this? What about this thing resonates with you? Tell me specifically what the thing is you like about this item. Do you like it because you've been seeing it everywhere? So your brain just goes, it's familiar, and therefore I like it because it's familiar. That's just one example of looking beyond the obvious choices. Consider whether some of the things that you are thinking about for your brand in terms of design, whether they are trends, and make a decision specifically about if you want to follow the trend or not. But whatever the particular design feature is, consider if there's a way to put your own unique spin on it. If there's an element of that particular feature that you can tweak in some way to make it your own. So that way, maybe you are doing something that a lot of other people are doing, but you figured out a way to make it different and unique just for your own brand so that when people are scrolling social media or they're browsing on the internet, yours still stands out above and beyond what everyone else is doing. So here's kind of like a practical example of how to potentially look beyond an obvious choice. When I was in design school, when we were doing graphic design, we had a professor who taught us as part of our critique of designs that we were to put them up on a wall, but then we would rotate them around. So when we design stuff, whether it's sketching or on the computer or whatever, we're doing it with a very specific orientation in mind. But she taught us to print them out so we can physically hold them. Sometimes maybe we cut them out so it's not just on a whole sheet of paper, but we just cut out the design itself and put it up. But then we started rotating it around, looking at this design from different angles. I thought this was weird at first, to be very honest, but I have used this trick a lot. And it has helped me see things in a different way where sometimes I will look at something and go, oh gosh, I don't the composition. I don't like the balance of these lines or these colors when I flip it upside down or when I turn it on its side. Not that our listeners are necessarily going to be doing their own design, but that's just kind of a, I guess, example of how could you look at something that you're considering from a design perspective from a different angle. Maybe you get some design concepts back from your designer. Instead of looking at them on your phone, maybe go ahead and print them out. Maybe you could do this exact same exercise. Another thing I do with my clients is I don't give them options in color. We start with black and white because I want to remove the element of bias from their decision. And so a lot of clients will struggle with this. Like, listen, if I put it in your favorite color, you're probably going to tell me you'd like it. I don't want you to like it because it's blue. I want you to like it because of the specific design elements, the structure, the fonts, the shapes. I want you to look at it critically from that perspective and not just, "Oh, it's in my favorite color. Yeah, it's pretty. I love it. Let's go with this one." I guess what I'm ultimately trying to say is consider how you can find a new or unique perspective to approach your brand identity or your brand assets that you're working on. And a really great thing you can do is have a brainstorming session with a trusted person. Maybe have them look at your mood board, or maybe if you do have logo concepts or other design concepts from your brand, maybe have them take a look and just give them permission to give you unfiltered feedback. And maybe they'll bring up something that you didn't see. For the designer or the client, they may not see it because they're so close to it. Now that you know, someone has told you, this is what I see. I don't see your logo. I see this other shape. Can you live with that? Are they the only one that may see it that way? Maybe, but oftentimes you can't unsee it. And
Mhm.
then you make a decision. Do I want to keep this or do I need to get more creative? It's really interesting the things that come up when asking for feedback. It's really interesting what you learn when you give permission to get that unfiltered feedback. And there have been times where I'm like, I got it. I finally nailed my logo, or I finally got the client's logo, and the client might love it. And then they send it out for feedback, and someone goes, "Actually, this reminds me a lot of X." And we go, "Oh, we didn't see that, but you're totally right, and we
Yeah.
don't want that." Or maybe, you know what? That's okay. We'll live with it. Ultimately, what I'm saying here is that your brand should be memorable because of its unique qualities. Look beyond obvious choices. Look beyond the trends. Ask for feedback. Get different perspectives just so you can ensure that the thing that you are pouring so much heart and time and even money into is something that is truly unique and is truly reflective of the brand that you want to present to.
Mhm. I love that. Well, and I also think be careful of who you share your designs with
Yes, there's that
because
caveat. Yeah.
there's definitely exactly. There's a strength to sharing it with a very to your point, just kind of like trusted small group of people because design is subjective. People can look at something a million different ways and you get a million different opinions and then you don't get anywhere, right? And people are going to
Yes.
always you're going to have people who absolutely love something you've done and someone who doesn't. And that's just the way of the world and human nature. So carefully curate who you are also going to share designs with. And we have to be sort of upfront with clients sometimes like, hey, have that one point of contact, that
Yep.
small team. Is it just two other people that this is getting shared with? You send it out to everyone. We're not going to get anywhere because we're going to
Yeah.
constantly be battling and filtering through 15 different opinions. And that's not always productive or constructive either. So definitely get that feedback. Just be careful who you get it from. I want to add our final tip for today look for inspiration in places that you wouldn't normally think to look. Um, this really hits home for me, and I feel like for you too, Jamie. We're
Hmm.
always looking at things out in the wild. So, kind of to your first point, going out and doing things and just moving and being in nature to add to that and get a little bit more specific. I know when I'm out and about at a restaurant looking at a menu, I'm ordering a coffee and I'm looking at the packaging, the design on the coffee cup. Just looking at the design of books and, back in the day when we would go to the store and buy CDs, I used to love looking at the packaging. I was so excited about buying the CD that I wanted to buy, and then I loved the cover artwork. And we even had a project in one of my first design classes in college, redesigning a CD cover pamphlet for someone. Magazine covers, tangible, the books, the things that you physically hold in your hand, things like that, gift wrap.
Hmm.
Anything dishes, anything that has some kind of cool design pattern on it. Just looking at
Architecture.
sort of real life things, architecture, 1000%. Buildings and parks and just different venues, museums, kind of like what
Yeah.
you touched on before. Just go out in the wild and like look at things and hold them in your hands. Everything was created from something and was inspired by something. So you can pull inspiration from just about anywhere. A good lesson, though, a good takeaway. to wrap up this tip, something I experienced. This was a few years ago with a client, and it was like a specific color palette and vibe she liked. Like she loved blues, very common. And blue is a great color, but we ended up taking her branding in the direction of the initial mood board, which was kind of rooted in the way that she had designed her home. She had renovated or remodeled some room, and she had gone through like the paint colors and things like that. And it was just a very specific vibe she was going for. And we were trying to translate that to her business at the time, which focused on like coaching, like career coaching, consulting, college students, young adults. And, anyways, long story short, once she saw it applied to her actual logo and saw it on a brand board, she's like, this is beautiful and great work. This is nothing personal. I just don't know that this is right for my brand, even though I love it in my home.
Yeah.
I love this design on curtains or on wallpaper or these details that are in my light fixtures or cabinet knobs or whatever. But that design and that general vibe and look and feel being applied to something different, like a visual brand and marketing materials and a website, it just didn't quite connect and translate for her. And that was okay. We just revisited some things and went through the strategy and the exercises that, we go through with clients and took things in a different direction. There was still a variance of blue in there and
Mhm.
some of that vibe, but we were just able to make tweaks and adjustments that then when she saw it at round 2 style,
Mhm.
she was like, "Yes, that's where it is." But we had to make those tweaks because just because you like something in your home or you like a piece of clothing with a design on it or jewelry, an accessory, whatever, it doesn't always mean that those same design elements are also going to translate to your
Mhm.
brand identity or your website. So just kind of a neat lesson because that was something that happened. And we had some really interesting conversations around it. And we kind of had to dig a little deep and figure out where the hang up was
Mm.
and the new direction to take things. Once we figured that out, we were able to knock it out of the park from there. And she was super happy. So that is my tip if you want to add anything onto that.
I do. I actually really appreciate you bringing that up because I will say, in my own experience with my own brand, I have used personal things that I've liked as a jumping off point, but and maybe this is just me being designer myself, I was intentional about tweaking it enough where my brand palette, my business palette wasn't exactly the same as what I liked personally. I just didn't want to get tired of it and one day wake up just hating all of it. But secondly, I wanted to build a brand that was separate from me. So it was influenced by my personal favorites, but at the same time, I was intentional about still building it out differently. I also want to add a couple of other inspiration ideas. I don't know why. I love product packaging and specifically wine labels. Wine
Mm.
labels they have been my go-to. And there was one night, I can't remember what the project was, but I do believe it was a logo design and I was out of inspiration. And I remember there was a deadline. So it was probably 7 o'clock at night. And I thought, I need to go to the store and go browse the wine aisles. I remember I went and grabbed a Starbucks and I walked into the store and I walked up and down the wine aisles looking for something. I don't know what I'm looking for, but it's going to jump out at me when I see it. And sure enough, I saw something. I was like, that's it. It was some font or it was a shape on a label. And it was that little spark. That's what I needed. So I remember taking a picture of it and I texted it, I don't know, to the client, or maybe I think I had another designer I was also working with, but there was some collaboration right in the store. I'm like, hey, I'm in the store looking for inspo and I think I found it. Here's his labels. I like these parts. What do you think? That project turned out beautiful. I also have a client who we were refreshing their brand. So they had an existing one that they loved. They've had it for a number of years, so they just wanted to freshen it up a bit. And part of what we were doing was modifying their color palette. I will never forget this, that one day I got a text from the client with the picture and she was like, well, I was on Amazon this weekend ordering some stuff for the office, and I saw these plates that I want to put in our kitchen, and here's our color palette. This is an absolute first. They were very colorful plates. It kind of matched the palette that they had, but there were some different colors in there. And so we used that as an inspiration for how we were going to refresh their brand color palette moving forward. All that to say, you never know where inspiration is going to strike, but it can strike in the places that you least expect it on a wine label, a building, a product package design. or even a set of dishes on Amazon. So
Mhm.
just keep your eyes open. Be willing to just get inspired by anything that speaks to you, and you might be pleasantly surprised by what comes out of that process.
Well, Jamie, this was such a fun conversation today. So I hope that it resonates with our listeners. And we will be back again very soon with another episode of Talk Branding to Me. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Before you go, if something clicked for you today, please share this episode with one person who needs to hear it.
And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram or grab resources at talkbrandingtome.com.